Hello, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome, welcome. I will be hosting today's session along with Ellie, and we are so glad that you could join us. So just a few things before we get started today. We ask that you keep your microphones muted, and we encourage you to use the chat to participate with us. We will have some interactive questions, so please respond via chat. And then if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to pop those in the chat as well, and we can address those at the end, but we'll also leave some space for a live Q&A session where we can kind of chat through things in real time. So we hope that you will bring those questions for us to go through. Additionally, we do have a giveaway at the end of the webinar, so we'll hope that you will stay with us to the end so that we can do a little something fun there. So as we get started, just for context, Attorney Assistant oversees about 800 remote placements. Ellie and I have seen what it takes to have a successful remote team and how you can build a high-performing team that wants to stay and is bought in. We work with many firms across the nation, and we are currently in our role building out teams with them day to day. And we are also overseeing our own team that leads all of the accounts here. So the goal for today will be to inspire you to lead your team in a way that's going to be effective, but also push them to be their best. We're going to focus on how you can create culture, how you can create trust, how you can empower them to sit in their role in a way that they can flourish independently. And that means that you'll be learning how to set clear expectations and fostering open dialogue to be able to get to this area. So by the end of this session, you're going to have strategies that you'll be able to implement today, implement long-term. We'll go through key areas that are going to be necessary for you to make remote team staffing successful. So let's get started. Ellie, I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Certainly. Thank you, Michelle. Once again, we appreciate everyone's time today. My name is Ellie Thomas. I've been with Attorney Assistant for about 2.5 years now. I've worked solely in remote staffing for the last few years, so I thoroughly understand the challenges and the wins we'll be talking about today. In my role, I support firms in identifying their internal needs and also helping them manage their impact assistant teams. I also help lead our own internal remote team that spans multiple time zones, personalities, and skill sets here at Attorney Assistant. What excites me about this work is that geography isn't a limit anymore. You can find talent from anywhere in the world, and when firms master delegation and role alignment, it can completely transform their business. That's what Michelle and I are here to share about today.
And just a little bit more about me. I actually started my career quite some time ago in education, moved into sales, and then ultimately client success, which I absolutely love. But I've been working remotely since 2009. So, for other businesses with my own small business, and now staffing for the past 5 years, all fully remote. But taking all of those experiences, I now know that successfully collaborating with remote team members is absolutely crucial. But all of these scenarios allowed me to really work with talented people at an affordable rate anywhere and really fill in the gaps that I needed in all of these places. So in staffing now, I find myself consulting with law firms, figuring out what's going to make the most sense for them. Do they need to hire stateside? Do they need in person? Can they fill a need with remote with some of our people? So there has been so many opportunities created for people that may have not otherwise had that, which is something that I truly enjoy about my role. So today we'll learn how to foster success in these remote placements and in a way that's going to honor your culture and align with your mission.
Definitely. Between Michelle and myself, we've overseen hundreds of remote placements in law firms across the country. We also manage a team of fully remote employees, as mentioned. I can tell you that no matter the firm type or size, the challenges and the wins are very consistent across firms. Our goal today is to give you strategies you can actually apply the minute you leave this webinar. This isn't just theory. We'll be sharing what's working right now for attorneys, paralegals, and support staff so you can build a culture where everyone can thrive. You'll leave with practical strategies for keeping your remote team engaged long term, building a strong culture even if your staff are scattered, and making sure roles stay aligned so you're not burning out your paralegals or underutilizing your assistants. We're going to keep this interactive as mentioned, so be ready to drop answers in the chat and take away some real steps you can apply today.
So with that said, I want to hear from our audience today some information. I would love for you to drop a 1 in the chat if you're already managing a remote staff. Drop a 2 if you're exploring what adding remote staff would look like. Or drop a 3 if it's on your radar and you plan to add a remote person soon here. Oh, good. So it looks like a couple people already have remote staff. So hopefully we can add some tidbits today to enhance what you've been doing already. Awesome. So I want to kind of set the stage as we go into the conversation today. We took a deep dive externally and internally to figure out what works, what doesn't, how remote people are feeling right now. So what we found is that 52% of firms have reported challenges in some capacity with communication and team collaboration with their remote workers. On the flip side of that, 44% of the remote workers had some frustrations of misalignment and expectations from their employer. So to me, kind of what stands out there is maybe lack of communication. But top turnover reason was burnout and not connected to the organization, which we know is super important. We want to keep them there, especially once you've invested in onboarding them. So we took a look at our internal IA. So the IAs that we have staffed in our agency, we sent out a survey just to get a feel for how they were feeling. And what we found was super exciting for us. We found that 87% of VAs are connected to their client's culture. They feel that way. And 82% feel extremely engaged with their team, even though they are remote. So I don't know that we're solely responsible for these successful numbers, but I think in partnership with our firms, we certainly are. So again, we'll kind of talk through what's working, how these numbers are achievable so that you can have the same things in your firms today.
Those numbers really highlight how universal these themes are, but in law firms, there are a few unique pressures that make remote team management even trickier. The first being billable hours and deadlines. For attorneys, every minute matters. So when tasks aren't delegated properly, it's not just a workflow issue, it's directly impacting revenue and client satisfaction. Number two, high confidentiality expectations. This industry is built on trust. A misstep with a file or even an offhand conversation could jeopardize client confidence. Number three, client trust concerns with remote support. Accents, cyber, and data security are all valid concerns. We hear this often. Can I really trust a remote team member with sensitive cases? And also, what if a client hears an accent or worries about security? These are valid concerns. And we'll walk through how our clients have addressed them head on. Fourth, empathy to the lead's unique needs. One pressure that's unique to law firms is that every first call matters. When someone calls your firm, they may have been injured, they're scared, or they may be navigating one of the hardest moments of their life. I would like for everyone right now to drop in the chat what your biggest hesitation or reservation has been about adding a remote team member. We hear a lot, so it could range anywhere from accent, security concerns, like we mentioned, wanting to keep staff strictly in-house. I know there are a lot of concerns, and we encounter them all.
Any hesitation is fine to share.
Communication, very important. I mean, that's a concern in office when everyone's right down the hall from each other, and especially whenever you have people working remotely. Accents, another big concern as well. Yes. Ah, very valid. Yes.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully we can address some of these while we're chatting today, and then we can loop back at the end too. But I am about to touch on some of these right here. So culture as a foundation, culture, as you know, does not happen by accident. It has to be intentionally created. You have to drive what the culture in your firm is going to look like. And it's a critical aspect of your team. And it directly impacts not only the stability of the team that you're building, but also your client service. So we have found that strong recognition in your practice actually sees a 31% higher retention rate in remote staff. So just as small of a gesture as recognizing someone can. So creating a culture when your team feels valued, motivated, and respected not only fosters engagement, but it also builds resilience when challenges arise. Everyone wants to run to it to fix it. So I think that getting to that point is crucial. Team members who feel included are more likely to be invested in your firm's success, and they're more likely to commit to providing high quality service to the clients that you serve, which is what we want, hands down. So here are a few ways that you can build belonging and recognition from the start. There are some small rituals like celebrating birthdays and calling it out, celebrating work anniversaries, calling out team wins and those who contributed to those wins, having weekly highlights like your Friday highs or your Friday success stories, adopting some gratitude practices. So, like for us, team wide, at least three a week, we want to reach out to the impact assistants that we have staffed and just tell them how much we appreciate them for showing up every day and serving their clients so well. And it goes a very long way. Monthly celebrations and recognition. So, as you finish each month, being super transparent about where you ended, where you're going, and who had successes that you can call out and celebrate. Regular shout outs every time something good happens, actually speaking to it, seeing it, saying it, and making someone feel like they've done a big thing. Using casual forms of communication like Slacks or team messages just for quick pings when you notice that someone is doing the things and you want to tell them. Personal check ins, weekend plans, family updates. How are you? Really humanizing the relationship, believe it or not, goes a long way. And then, of course, we want to protect work-life balance. That's something that we're all striving for in life. We want to protect mental health. We want to be able to show up really great for work, which means we need to unplug and recharge in the off hour. So respecting those boundaries, not requiring or thinking that you're going to have 24/7 availability just because they are remote and work in a home office. So figuring out how to really honor that. But culture is more than just the recognition and the shout outs, of course. It's about alignment with your purpose. Retention and motivation are going to be higher when everyone feels like they're a strong fit by what your company is wanting to do, the values and what drives you. Helping people, I hear all the time when we're talking to our firm owners, their goal is to help people. So if we can find an impact assistant who also has that heart for service and the need to help people, it just works out so well. So really making sure that you're finding people that you hire that align with your why, that you foster connection, engagement, and that you have shared goals. That is how you build culture. And that is how you make a great culture that people want to be a part of. So co-creating some goals together, again, letting everyone in on what we're working towards is going to be key. We want team members to feel invested, and we want to encourage cross-department meeting and communications again, so everyone is working towards the same thing. I would also encourage you to share your client success stories. When you have a client that ends up with a settlement that they really deserve or that you were able to serve for the better, sharing that. So again, everyone's really excited and pumped to continue these efforts long term. In that same survey that I talked about, where we had high buy-in on our impact assistants here, they actually shared when they wrote in a free response form what meant the most to them were simple gestures, checking in, saying thank you, asking about their weekend, and overall feeling valued and included. We also found that those are the ones who have the longest partnerships and feel the most satisfied when we send our periodic check-ins to see on a scale of 1 to 5, how happy are you in your role? We want to make sure that who we place is happy so that they will stay with you and continue to serve long term. So by intentionally designing this culture, the recognition, the purpose, the connection on your team, you're going to enhance engagement, but you're also going to make sure that everyone's aligned to deliver the best output. Bottom line.
Definitely. I have never met with a firm owner who said they wanted a lower retention score. So, love those points. We've seen them work. They are all very valid. Let's shift now into cybersecurity and onboarding, two areas that really set your remote team member up for success. The American Bar Association's 2024 survey showed that about 1 in 4 firms has dealt with some kind of cyber incident. That stat isn't meant to alarm you. It's a reminder, though, that every firm, big or small, benefits from having good safeguards in place. When remote staff come on board, things like Wi-Fi security, file sharing, and password practices simply become part of the equation. Here's the good news. Cybersecurity isn't just about IT protection. Done well, it actually strengthens your culture. The Society for Human Resource Management found that strong onboarding practices can dramatically improve retention and engagement. When new staff feel confident in the systems you've given them, they know how to work securely and what's expected. They also ramp up faster and they feel more connected, meaning that they are able to deliver value to your clients faster. That's why we frame secure onboarding not as a checklist item, but as a trust building step. From day one, remote team members should feel prepared, supported, and confident. That confidence pays off in the quality of their work and the trust your clients place in your firm. Another question for everybody. If you already have a formal cybersecurity onboarding or cyber onboarding process for new hires, just say me or drop it in the chat.
Anyone? So key into making sure that they can successfully serve your firm and also protect all of the information that's going in and out that we know is super sensitive. So Claudia already has one. Awesome.
I will say from us meeting with firms, Michelle, you share if you see it in a different way, but a lot of firms do not. And it is so important to have across any industry, but especially this one where security is so important.
Absolutely. So speaking of onboarding, we will kind of shift into training and setting your remote assistant or team up for success from the beginning. So structured onboarding will bring 22% faster productivity. That means they're going to be able to integrate faster, despite what it may feel like. You put a little bit more time up front so that they can perform better as they continue in the role. So an example that I like to share is that Ellie and I both are experienced in client success. We are both experienced in staffing, and we came to attorney assistant with that experience in our back pocket. Were we able to jump in, serve clients, enter in all the things on day one? No, we were not. We wanted to, but it took us some time to integrate and implement. We had to learn what attorney assistants' workflows were. We had to learn what information we need to gather from clients to make a successful placement. We had to learn about the offerings that we have in our product, which is our IAs who has particular skill sets. So regardless of the experience that someone has, there's going to be some training involved. So I also encourage you hiring based on your culture and based on finding someone with grit and drive, because I see that those are the ones who are most successful, as opposed to experience only. And when you can shift your mindset, you will see that you're going to have a lot more success with those people who just have the drive to learn and who have the drive to perform and want to do well. We do recommend training, of course, very specifically by role and having some priorities in mind before the person starts. That's going to look very different if you're onboarding a paralegal versus onboarding a intake specialist. So having those priorities defined before someone comes on board, and then really standardizing what training looks like for each role. And once you create this once, you will be able to duplicate it over and over again. You will continue to scale your business and then just plug them into onboarding, which is going to be super helpful. So you can use Loom, you can use Zoom clips. Many of us are already using Zoom. So clips is a new feature that you can just record right while you're working. Those two features, you don't even have to set aside separate time to do those trainings. If you are in your CRM, plugging in case information, just screen record while you're doing it in real time. Your paralegal can do the same so that the information is collected while you're doing something that had to be done anyways, and then you put this in your training bank. Additionally, there's a tool called Scribe that will actually transform pictures and videos into an SOP that is very clearly laid out with written steps. So there are ways, especially with AI now, that you can make your onboarding package, so to speak, for everyone pretty easily. And again, once you do it once, it's done. Definitely recommend having a buddy system in place and planning for shadow time for new hires, even remotely, sharing screen as they're going through tasks, shadowing phone calls, whatever that may be. Going ahead and having that pre-planned is going to be helpful. So we have a 4-week roadmap also that we have created. Again, this is for just, I think, a reasonable timeline for someone to really get ramped up and integrated into the role. Yes, you are going to see some quick wins sooner than that, especially as we kind of break this down on our side. If we're looking at intake specialists, case management assistants, or medical records retrievals, really in about 2 weeks, we want them doing some independent tasks and goals. So this is a 4-week expectation of what you look like, what it's going to look like. Day 1 and 2, you're going to have your launch time, team introductions. It's really going to be about setup, making sure that credentials are working and that you've outlined clearly what onboarding is going to look like, who their communication points are going to be, who they're going to go to through questions. And again, just set the stage for what this first couple of weeks is going to look like. By week 1, we want them to have a full grasp of culture, mission, and values. They should have been shadowing on task and then maybe even doing some guided practice by the end of that week. Establishing a feedback loop in real time. If you establish feedback loops from the beginning, it won't be a surprise if there are some critiques that happen as this person onboards. But reviewing wins and challenges, wins, even if they're really small in that first week, is going to be crucial. Week 2, you're going to delegate those first 1 to 2 tasks, and we want to see them really start to work on them independently with feedback. And then I always like to set a 2-week goal for new people who are entering a firm. Realistically, what can they be doing independently by the end of week 2? So at that time, you'll be having an assessment call with one of us, or your team can set up an internal 2-week check, pulse check. How are we doing? Did we meet our first 2-week goal? So really just breaking down their onboarding into bite-sized chunks and then communicating to them, hey, this is what I want to see you to be able to do by the end of week 2. Week 3 is more independent execution, completing those tasks with more mastery, adding on a couple more, having less supervision. Questions should be starting to wane down a little bit. And again, having that end of week progress check. Week 4, they're pretty much managing tasks independently with a few questions here or there, knowing who the person is for support or questions as they go along, celebrating wins, and then really looking at the month as a whole. Was this successful? What worked well? What didn't? What can we tweak? And what can we add on to your plate for the next month? And then, of course, outside of that 4-week period, there's going to be ongoing skills training as you go along. You're going to want to level up kind of what tech features might be new, client services, compliance things that go along. So again, just being prepared to make sure they have a successful start.
Definitely. We quickly found that without a roadmap, we were essentially asking impact assistants to read their client's mind. So that is something that can easily be adapted for any team member coming on board. Okay, now it's time for everyone's favorite 13-letter word, communication. I like to break this down into 2 different areas, those being micro and macro communication. Micro is the day-to-day, the tactical updates, and then also your individual team member having a go-to person for clarity on things. So it's really the day-to-day communication, them having deadline expectations and knowing what is expected of them day to day and how to communicate that. Macro communication would be the big picture, the firm-wide goals that change quarter to quarter and year to year. We also need to make sure we have tools that complement these 2 forms of communication. That can look like your case management dashboard, a project tracking tool, internal communication tools such as Slack or Teams, and then maybe even something for scheduling such as Calendly or Calendar. I like to say that remote team members at whatever level thrive when they have both micro and macro communication in place. I believe that to be kind is to be clear with your team members, no matter what level they are. Recent workplace research shows that employees who received meaningful feedback, at least weekly, were 3 times more likely to be engaged. Yet paralegals and virtual assistants may go weeks or even months without hearing how they're doing, other than whether a case was filed on time or not. Firms that implemented weekly team huddles saw 20% faster case processing times. Here's the shift you can make. Instead of waiting for quarterly reviews to share feedback, create small opportunities. That could look like a daily stand up, weekly huddles, or even a quick Friday message saying something like, here's one thing you did this week that really helped our clients. Specific recognition tied to outcomes is far more powerful than a generic good job. Also, encourage your team members to share solution-focused feedback upwards also with whoever they report to. There are always going to be issues that pop up. There's no end to that. But we do want to encourage your team members to bring solutions up along with these issues as well. A lot of times they're going to have so much insight. If they are already the individuals dealing with these day-to-day things, they may have more insight than someone above them who is not in the day-to-day. So we always like to encourage your team members to share feedback. If they're going to bring a problem, to also bring a solution with them. Also, reward going above and beyond so that your standard is being pushed and challenged, not simply met. An example of this would be if a goal is to close 20 leads in October, set a stretch goal to close 22. On the macro communication side, why it's so important, every person on your payroll should know your quarterly goals as a firm. They should know their department goals. And they should also know how their individual role and those goals tied to that contributes to the big picture. Engagement will deepen when your team members know, your VA, for example, they know that they're not just answering phones, but they're protecting billable hours for your attorneys. Being very honest, a common misconception we often hear is that firms feel that their support staff or remote team don't necessarily need to understand the why of the firm or the big picture goals. This is extremely limiting, and it's not only going to hinder performance, confidence, and knowledge base, but it's going to limit how far they can go and how far they can even sell the firm to callers if they're speaking to your leads. I just want to wrap up and say that when communication is consistent at both levels we talked about within your firm, we see client delivery become very consistent also. Consistency in communication equals consistency in client delivery. When the details matter and they are communicated, everything else matters also.
And if you're communicating, you might feel like you have to micromanage less. So we will shift into accountability without micromanagement, which I think someone asked about at the beginning. So I'm excited to touch on this topic. But I'd love to hear when you think about managing your remote staff, which of these is most true for you? Number one, tracking productivity is about visibility and alignment. Number two, micromanagers start when you lose trust. Or number three, I struggle to tell the difference sometimes. I would love to hear what you think about accountability versus micromanagement. Yes, visibility and alignment are super important. So let's talk about some ways to achieve that. Number one, you've heard it several times, and there's going to be some themes that you've heard multiple times because they're important, but transparency around expectations, clear expectations, and then setting KPIs up front are going to be crucial. You want X answer rate. You want X follow-ups per lead. You want to achieve this sign rate. You want this percentage of conversions for booked appointments. So you can set those goals at first. It does not mean that they're going to achieve them right away, but it does mean we have a common goal of achieving that, and they now know what their expectations are and that they are going to have to work towards that and show effort towards that, which is going to alleviate a lot from you. If someone just plugs in and they hit the ground running, let's say on intake for booked free consultations, and you've set no guidelines, and they might not stretch themselves very far, or they might not understand the importance of getting those booked appointments on your calendar. So setting very clear KPIs up front, again, that you can break down and work towards, but we want to know what the end goal is. Seeing tasks cleared in a CRM or weekly metric dashboards that everyone can put eyes on, and then defining really clear expectations around some of these things. So bringing it down even further. But if you tell someone from the beginning, this is our goal response time to reply to clients, then all of a sudden they know, hey, I probably need to scan my email more than 3 times a day because the response time is expected of me is this. How many follow-ups until you close out an account? Again, every firm is a little bit different. So those are small details that you're going to need to communicate in order to close the loop on those expectations. How many tasks are cleared daily? Is the expectation that they have 0 tasks by the end of their shift? Or is the expectation that about 90% are going to get done realistically by looking at the historical patterns in your firm? So again, communicating those expectations down to the very small detail is going to eliminate a lot of the things that occur in kind of the long-term accountability or the shift where you all of a sudden feel like you have to micromanage if you weren't micromanaging or having the tendency to micromanage at the beginning. So also agreeing on deadlines, ownership, and then in that launch call, when you start with someone, identifying what success looks like for them is going to be key. Hearing it then, and then reiterating that when you have your feedback sessions is going to be important. I also think it's important as many of us are shifting to remote or bringing on remote team members that we focus on outcomes and not where every minute of the day is. And that is because some people work at different paces. Some people find out, okay, this is my end goal, but they're going to have a little bit different flow or a different approach. If the outcome is where you want it, then every minute of how they did it doesn't need to be scrutinized. And ultimately, you don't need to be spending your time worried about that. You've got bigger and better things that you need to be putting your attention on. You can measure progress again by setting those cadences of when we're going to meet and how we're going to assess what's been accomplished, the wins and challenge every 2 weeks and things like that, that are going to help you proactively get ahead of any issues that, again, are going to make you feel like you have to really be in the details with them. I think that creating a space of flexibility while everyone's priorities are aligned is the ultimate thing that we want to achieve here. We want to make sure that cases are moving forward in a way that are super timely, meeting all those goals while also allowing someone to just work in their flow and do the things. Now, you can use some tools that will allow you to manage and have more insight without asking them every minute where they are. Time Doctor is a tool that we use. It allows them to check in and out and monitor, gives a summary of productivity and does some monitoring there. You can use, and many of you are probably already doing this, your case management system to see how many tasks they're clearing on a daily basis and what is happening in terms of notes in your CRM. You're going to be able to see how much activity. So I think really leveraging the insight that those tools give to you is going to be the start. And then trusting that the output is going to come along with that. Again, if you're setting those expectations, communicating the common goals for everything, it's going to fall into place. So being sure that you've got whoever's going to be managing your remote team members in a set cadence for weekly one-on-ones, understanding the importance of the feedback loops, and then really encouraging proactive communication. Again, this is from the start, week 1 with your remote team member. Proactive communication on where things sit means less of you having to run and chase down status if something is falling behind. So if you establish that expectation from the beginning, I think you're going to see a lot of less stress or stress melt away from you worrying about that. Now, here is my feeling. I think that sometimes you can I don't know, overcomplicate or put too much emphasis on certain things when the reality is that if you build a culture of accountability, you have all of this upfront expectations and communications laid out, and then you recognize their great efforts, it's going to go a lot further than putting pressure on them. I think every time, again, when they feel valued, their wins are recognized, their progress is recognized, that they are going to perform and step up to the level that you want. So in summary, I know I've shared a lot just in this segment alone, but I'm pretty passionate about it. Metrics should be visible to all. Transparency is key. Make sure expectations are outlined from the beginning. Figure out how you can balance trust and your need for control. We don't want resentment from the other side. We want a long-term fit where they feel satisfied, happy, and that they are doing the things. And use some tools for insight instead of maybe going to them for every question. So yes, Now, Ellie will touch on aligning roles.
Let's jump in. Roles and alignment, roles and workload within your firm. If you want to keep your team engaged and prevent burnout, you have to respect their scope of work and align tasks with both their skill and expertise. What do you need each person to be great at within your firm? One of the fastest ways to burn out your team, especially in a law firm, is role misalignment. Research has shown that role ambiguity is one of the top three drivers of disengagement, aka quiet quitting. In our world, that looks like paralegals being pulled into admin tasks or attorneys spending too much time micromanaging, as Michelle just referenced, instead of practicing law. We've seen data showing that firms misusing paralegals for admin tasks saw 30% higher turnover in the last 2 years. And it makes sense. If someone trained in specialized legal work is stuck formatting documents, they'll either disengage or leave. Here's a helpful question I encourage every firm owner to ask. What do you need each role within your firm to be great at? As an example, this could look like for your attorneys, strategy and client relationship being the top priority. For paralegals, specialized case support and compliance. For impact assistants or virtual assistants, repetitive process-driven tasks that free up everyone else's time. Bottom line, don't overpay your paralegals to do admin level work that needs to be delegated elsewhere. When you protect those boundaries, you're not just saving money, you're protecting engagement and creating upward mobility in your culture. As our CEO Ethan has pointed out many times, you cannot work on your business if you're constantly stuck working in it. You must delegate so that you can plan for firm growth, efficiency, and improvement. This comes from aligning roles and protecting workload.
So as we kind of start to wrap up here, and I know we're running short on time because we do want to leave space for any questions, I will just touch on some of the pitfalls to avoid, again, that you can pull from everything that we've shared today. But essentially, over communicating or under communicating, both of those might cause some issues. Too many messages or pings throughout the day is going to create overwhelm and pull focus away. And then too little communication might lead to confusion or, again, leaving unanswered expectations on the table. So balance is key, finding some structure into what that looks like. Assuming experience means no ramp up time. We already touched on that. Onboarding and having a plan is super crucial. Allowing role drift, as Ellie just touched on. Assuming that silence is alignment. That is not always the case. Sometimes there needs to be, or we want to see more questions, that proactive communication. And if it's not there, then it needs to be addressed. Ignoring recognition and ignoring the importance of culture. That is super important, as we've talked about several times throughout our time today. It is crucial to establish that and make sure that everyone is in alignment. And then over indexing on specific things at the cost of your team morale. Ultimately, we want them to do all the things. We want our firm owners to hit their goals, but you have to have long-term engaged staff who is excited to get to that next level to make that happen.
Definitely. And following up quickly on what I see being one of the biggest pitfalls within a law firm is the tendency to replace the weakest team member with someone who is only slightly better. On the surface, this can feel like progress, but it still sets the bar too low. To truly elevate your team, you should be thinking about what it would look like to find someone equal to your best performer for that department. That mindset shift raises the standard of excellence and pushes everyone forward with your firm's culture. Whether you're bringing on another attorney, hiring a paralegal, or even bringing on an additional impact assistant or VA, the focus can't just be, can they do the job? The real question is, do they buy into our culture? Do they complement our strongest players already on that team? And are they going to push our standards higher? Poor company culture often comes down from tolerating mediocrity or keeping a team member who isn't bought in far too long. I felt it personally in roles, and I've also seen firsthand how quickly a team improves when you make the decision to let go of someone who isn't the right fit. If you're aware of this type of person within your team right now, your other employees are also, and they're watching to see what is tolerated. You have to protect your team and culture once you work so hard to establish it and build it. That's why at Attorney Assistant, we do want to be quick to focus on the fit first. Are they capable? Are they willing to learn? Are they able to implement feedback specific to the firm? If someone isn't the right fit, we want to be quick to recommend a transition so that we can get someone in who is. The key to this is give clear feedback, but don't delay once you know someone isn't a fit. Act quickly and decisively. And lastly, replace with capable talent, not just slightly better.
And I do really quickly, we had planned to share more, but I think Ellie and I can at least share one client success story where we've seen all of these things come into practice. One that comes to mind for me is a firm that started with 2 assistants. They now have 5. And they have, although we've helped fill the need and hired on skill set, what's been amazing for me to see is that they are having frequent check-ins. They are meeting with me at our regularly scheduled meeting again so that we can continue to level up every couple of weeks and set new expectations. But they have integrated these remote assistants into their firm and then let them flourish and find a place where they shine the most and help them kind of figure out in alignment with their processes that they've set what works best for them. And then on the other side, when we check in with the virtual assistants, they're saying, I love this job. I want to be here forever. I feel so valued. So creating a culture where you're getting the things done, but also finding the best fit for people to shine in their role and really elevate what their natural talents are, which has been so amazing to see.
Definitely. And following up, I know I mentioned it earlier, but I had a firm get started with us a few years back, and they were very skeptical and they were upfront about it from the beginning. They were skeptical over accents, they were skeptical over how their clients would receive talking to people that were not physically in their office. And it's something we were able to talk head on with them about. Since then, though, they have grown tremendously, and their tenure, the loyalty that these impact assistants have to this firm, it's been really incredible to see. But a few of the things that the firm has done to really build that tenure and trust and loyalty within their team so that no one ever wants to step away, they only grow. They put everyone on their website so it looks like they are another team member. If they have someone calling, or let's say an impact assistant is talking to a lead, and if they ask, where are you from? They say, I am part of blank law firm's remote team. I am part of their remote office. And then, of course, they know the firm's location. They can say, if you want the address to the firm, here it is. I do want to touch on accents though, because if you are wanting to place somebody in a role that is going to be client facing, I do believe it's very important to have individuals that you feel confident in. So making sure that you feel confident before they get started, you hear them speak, you know how they're going to sound, and you feel secure in that. Of course, if it's for more of a behind the scenes role or medical record retrieval, that is not as applicable, but also know who you feel comfortable with representing your firm because we can always train on a lot of different things, skill sets, but culture is going to be so important in making sure you find the right fits there. But we have seen so much success in similar firms because they truly treat their team members like they matter. And Corey just dropped in the chat a few of our testimonials as well, if you would like to read more about that.
Perfect. And we will, just a heads up, be sending over some resources for you all from today. So you'll have your takeaways to review and even the roadmap for onboarding. So don't worry, we will get that to you as well.
Definitely. Just going over some takeaways from today. I would like for everyone to choose one thing to apply. That can look like either setting consistent communication rhythms, realigning roles quarterly if you feel like people are straying from their original role, defining success with measurable metrics, protecting culture through rituals or recognition, as Michelle spoke on, implementing cyber secure onboarding, or encouraging growth opportunities for remote staff.
All right, so we would love to take any questions that you have now. You can drop them in the chat if you'd like, or you can come off mute. But any questions that you have, we are here to answer for the next few minutes, and then we will close out and do our giveaway. While we're waiting to see if anyone has anything, we can take a look back. I loved that Lakita said accountability forces micromanagement. So not setting those accountability expectations from the beginning. Of course, you're going to wonder what they're doing and what they're working towards. And then I also saw keeping engaging communications, not taking advantage and not ghosting. And I think you can avoid that by, again, setting very small chunks for them to accomplish kind of each week in the beginning, and then going forward from that. Hey, this is really what you need to be doing. I need to see 90% of your tasks cleared or the date updated by the time you close out every single day. So kind of having what a successful day looks like outlined can really alleviate that. And then encouraging the proactive communication from anyone that you bring on board is going to be crucial as people start working remotely, so that it doesn't feel like they're on an island and not knowing what they're doing.
Yep. I'd say following up on what Lakita said as well, we like to encourage team members, if they have any gaps in their day, there's always something to be done. But if in their role specifically there are gaps, sometimes it's something as simple as telling them, bring it to your leader if you have space and bandwidth to do more. If you are, finding yourself, you have these pockets of time where you don't know what you should be doing, ask, bring ideas and solutions of what you see you could be doing. A lot of times people don't know that they have permission to do that. And I do think as firm owners, there is so much to be done. I can't imagine anyone not being happy to have solutions brought up to them of like, hey, can I follow up and get Google reviews from past happy clients? There's always something that could be done to fill that time, but I recommend empowering people to, when they do have open space, to bring ideas forward of what they're interested in doing.
There can be a rainy day task list that you have for, especially I would say, an impact assistant. What are you doing when the phones aren't ringing? Something that they can pull from to contribute to the firm at all times.
Yep.
All right, it's giveaway time. So Erin will choose a winner, and then in alignment with our conversation today, the prize is going to be something sweet for your firm to continue building your culture and community. Thank you. Claudia, if you could drop your email in the chat, someone from our team will reach out to get your details. So as we wrap up today, I just want to, like Ellie said, encourage you to put one of these items into action to make a difference in how you interact with your remote team. And then if you are looking to build out your remote team, you can certainly book a strategy call with one of our team members here and learn a little bit more about how you can build out successfully with our remote options. And then if you're already a client with us, you can always book a call with your client success manager to further discuss how to enhance your remote team or implement any of the practices that we talked about today. So truly grateful that you all spent some time for us today. We hope you learned something, and Ellie and I are so passionate about this topic and just hope again that you enjoyed it. Bye, everyone.
Thank y'all for your time.